Welcome to everyone. My name is Philip Ross, the founder of WorkTech, and it gives me real pleasure to be chairing a great session for you on the digital workplace. I'm joined by three fabulous guests. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming Sabine M from Locatee. Sabine, welcome. She's the Customer Success and Thought Leadership Manager of Locatee, and we'll hear more about that business and what you do. Peter Otto, Peter, welcome back. And Peter is Chief Product Officer at Condeco. And finally, Mathias Elmiger. And Mathias is from Johnson & Johnson and is the Director of Knowledge and Data Strategy. Mathias, welcome. So, to give you a glimpse of Europe, I know North American workplace, but we thought we would just transport you to Europe, give you a feel for what's going on around innovation. Mathias and Sabine are sitting in Switzerland, and Peter and myself are sitting in. So we hopefully will give you a perspective. Thanks everyone for staying up a little bit late, but we're the east and west coasts, so do ask questions and fire us some ideas as we have this debate. So Mathias, maybe it's just our colleagues on. For those who don't know, what is Johnson & Johnson? What does the business do?
So obviously, a lot of us probably know the baby powders and baby creams, but actually we're the largest healthcare company in the world. More than 50% of the annual turnover is from pharmaceuticals. A bit more than 30% medical devices, and then the rest is as consumers, as products. So the ones you actually know from the stores. But we're mainly focused on pharmaceuticals and medical devices. We have we guess we have about 980 properties globally. It's changing almost on a daily basis, so that's why we say it's about 980, and just over 130,000 employees.
So COVID must have had an interesting impact. Let's start with your experience of how the pandemic hit and how you've initially responded to that. Give us a flavour for what you've done.
What did we do? Obviously, we started in China. We had great learnings from Asia Pac. Obviously, MEA and then the US. We learned a lot from Asia Pac, like how what can we do for our employees? What do we need to ensure to have in place from a supplies perspective? Not all countries, not all sites were prepared with, let's say, simple elements like laptops, or certain countries having connections at home, like Vietnam. We don't really have internet connection at every home, so how can we ensure that employees can still work in a safe environment? So we had great learnings, but it hit us badly. So it hit us like every other company. From one week to the other, it completely changed. And we had a great collaboration between HR and IT and facilities, just to make sure that we had the supplies, we had the right guidance and policies in place, that we were able to keep our employees working in a safe environment at home. So literally, we had all our office employees at home. Our make sites were always live and producing. So the manufacturing sites, that's the good news. We were able to keep them open in a safe environment, again, for our employees. But the office employees, over 65,000 employees, were at home almost at once.
And how important was it for you to kind of begin to visualize your portfolio, to kind of find solutions to get a feel for, or a perspective as to how the portfolio was performing?
Yeah, about a year ago, just over a year ago, we started testing the Locatee software analytics tool at 4 sites. So 2 in the US, or 4 properties, 2 in the US, 1 in Switzerland. With COVID now, we decided that we globally extend this visualization tool to over 500 sites globally. So we're covering now over 80% of our portfolio with the tool, just to understand what is actually happening, because we do not have the people physically on site as we had before. We want to understand how utilization is changing through the different waves. Obviously, we're in wave 3, we call it in Switzerland. We will be eligible to go back in the office, but the true numbers show us that only about 10% of our employees are back in the office in Switzerland, because they understand they can still work from home, and it's maybe a lot safer to work from home at the moment than going back to the office. So that's kind of the key element what COVID accelerated for Johnson & Johnson. I would say, you know, within the next 3-4 years, we would have been at this stage anyway, from a pure technology visualization perspective, but COVID just accelerated that dramatically, because we would like to understand what the portfolio does, but also playing this back to our employees so that the employees understand what is happening, you know, where should I go, you know, what's the current utilization, where can I find this place, and eventually trying to find out what the future is of that physical space.
So Sabine, maybe for the attendees that don't know Locatee, you're a Swiss company. Tell us about your product and how you've helped Mathias visualize and measure his space as is described.
So Locatee is a workplace analytics platform that visualizes utilization data, and we get that utilization data by measuring network connections. So that means if you go into the office in the morning and then log in on your computer, automatically Locatee will know that someone is present in the office. So there's no additional hardware needed. We're just exploiting what's there in the company. And then we run that through our algorithm and visualize it in dashboards, so that you have, on the one hand, live data of utilization of the offices, which came to be very important right now, because you want to make sure that you're not exceeding certain thresholds of utilization. And also, we compute that to have historical data available, so that then you can make analysis, which is probably going to be more interested going forward when we're talking about the future of the workplace. And yeah, that's
really interesting. And apart from data through people logging in, kind of like IP address data, how else do you measure? Because obviously someone brings a laptop or a cell phone. How else do you perhaps measure occupancy if it's not a traditional desk with a login?
It's not only that it's long data that we measure, but we can measure the Wi-Fi connections as well. So if you are on Wi-Fi, we will register that as well as you are connected to company network.
Yeah, really interesting. So Peter, just kind of moving on to you now. We've worked together for a long time, and you're with Condeco, that many will so recognise as a major player in resource management and reservations. But it's now more than that. Tell us a bit about your perspective on how COVID's impacted the use of buildings.
I mean, for us, from a product perspective, at the beginning of this crisis, it obviously was a very new challenge that we always had a strong part of our product portfolio was dedicated to desk reservations. But it's no secret that the majority of what we do is related to meeting room reservations and all the associated things like services, visitors, and so on. That hang off this. So at the beginning of this crisis, we were thinking, what are we going to do, right? How can we help our customers, once we know where this is going, slowly return to the office in a safe, in a COVID-safe way, so to say. And that triggered some really interesting pivot on our existing product to answer all these challenges that our customers came to us with. So, for example, how can we rapidly de-densify the workspace to basically create the necessary distance between workstations, for example, for social distancing? How can we then manage occupancy? So if we actually have less space and we start returning to the office, how can we make sure that the office, there isn't a crunch every Monday and people are, coming to the office looking for desks? There aren't any desks. Now, arguably, we're still far away from that in most regions. But managing occupancy is a huge challenge, I think, for many of our customers. And obviously now, the office is no longer the primary place of work. So what does that mean for a product like ours that fundamentally helps people find the space where they are most productive? And the home is now part of that equation. So, which then triggered sort of that question: how do we bring teams together, right? How do I find someone else? So we always had features like find your colleague in the workplace, in a flexible workspace where you know, it might not be obvious where people sit at a given point. So how can we expand this, for example, to the home? So there's a lot of interesting product challenges that we've been solving in the last few months, with really the big focus on enabling management of occupancy, enabling social distancing, enabling workspace sanitization, for example. So how, as an employee, can I be sure that when I come and I book a desk, that it's clean in practical terms, right? And what happens if it hasn't been cleaned in time for one reason or the other, right? I need to know this, right? I need to know whether now I need to stay at home or I can maybe schedule to work somewhere else. And then obviously there's this topic of contact tracing that everyone was talking about all summer, right? What happens if I'm in the office and I may have been sitting near someone who turned out to be ill, right? How can we easily and quickly find out who was nearby, alert these people, tell them to work from home? So we build a lot of features just facilitating the return to the office.
Really interesting. I mean, Mathias, let's go back. I mean, we've heard some of the kind of the product features. What do the actual customers want? I mean, we had this discussion about the voice of the customer. So, you know, you said 130,000 people around the world. What do you think they're looking for to kind of, you know, for you to assure them that it's safe to come back, or their experience when they come back?
They're still trying to understand what the experience actually is. That's very important. I don't think there is a conclusion on what the experience is by country, by culture, by region. We did a sentiment survey from the HR department on a weekly basis with a subset of employees, and it's to understand these different waves. It's to understand, you know, first you were at home with your kids, then you were at home, like in Switzerland, without your kids, so schools are open again. That's a different experience everyone goes through. What we are doing right now is just keeping all, you know, trying to get all that data, trying to understand what is the experience employees right now have and how can we improve it. And then longer term, what is the future experience our employees will have in the physical company environment? At the moment, we're trying to improve the physical home environment, almost for, you know, everybody around the globe. We can do that with you know, home office allowances, just as an immediate step. We're doing that with, you know, virtual ergonomic assessments, just any small features. IT rolled out Zoom for everyone in the company. It's just small little experience gains we can give back, and we're trying to measure that, what the impact is. And then the next big step is what's the, you know, the design impact, the physical impact to the sites. And there again, because we have over 900 properties around the globe, you can't just have one kind of cookie cutter approach for changing your design. We're just deployed 30,000 activity-based environments, you know, within the last 10 years. I wouldn't stand here and say this was the wrong decision at all. It's a good decision, but what's now the next big impact to those environments? And, you know, how should we plan for that? Obviously, rental agreements, you have 10 plus 5 plus 5 years. You have contracts with your co-working companies. So, you know, what do we need together? What do we need to decide together to actually increase or enhance this new physical experience our employees will have?
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, Sabine, I liked your idea of the human-centric office building, and you know, you talked to a few interesting buzzwords around personalization, finding, optimizing, communicating, conserving, controlling, securing. What do you look at when you look at use cases? What do you see, and how does your technology align or solve those problems or issues?
Yeah, well, there's two aspects. So companies now have a huge portfolio sitting empty that might be the most efficient, most beautiful buildings in the world, but they're not utilized right now. And it becomes very obvious that the focus needs to lie on making those workplaces places that people want to go back to. So, and in making sure that this is the case, there's various data that will have to be taken into account. There's these kind of surveys that Mathias just mentioned as more of a subjective input into that. And then there will be data sources or data points that can help establish what a future workplace that people like to go back to is. So the kitchen table that we're probably working at now is probably not going to be where we want to be all the time. We might want to go there for some focus group, or if there's anyways something that we need to do at home where we need the flexibility. But there is occasions where we want to collaborate with our colleagues, where there's team or project work, where we probably want to go back to the office. And the utilization data then can help find out, well, which kind of work, combined with, of course, the surveys, are people coming to the office, and which kind of environment do you then need to provide, and where do you then have surplus space that you can, in accordance with the leases and the overall public status, maybe get rid of or use differently for other processes and operations.
Interesting, Mathias. I mean, what is the office for? I mean, it's a really good point that Sabine makes, that people are now experiencing work at home, which is, I guess, fine for some activities. And you talked about activity-based working. Do you think that balance will change? Do you think, are you seeing across your portfolio people will come in less for those kind of solo activities where you can now do that at home? And will you begin to reinvent or reimagine your workplaces for different activities or different purposes?
It's possible. I think the first element we need to focus on is how did the metrics change of our real estate data. So obviously, we plan for all these activity-based workplaces with different metrics depending on region. We, in certain regions, we with the activity-based working, first time ever, we hit the target utilization. We never hit the target utilization before. I think most of companies, they do not hit their target utilization. They're probably around 60–50%. So now we're starting to hit that utilization. Now with COVID, it's fair to say that maybe a partial group of employees longer term will work from home. But I don't see J&J as being a culture of home office workers. It's also a clear message from our CEO that there is an upside to home working, but there is also a big downside to home working. I think we all still gain from our, collaborations we had in the past years within our company. We know each other, we have a personal relationship, and that's why it's still working from home. So let's imagine in 3 years from now, all your colleagues, peers are new, and you never met them, you never, socialize with them. It's a completely different working environment. So I think for J&J, yes, we have to reimagine what these metrics are, but I still think, I'm still a strong believer that the activity-based environment covers a lot of the needs of our employees, especially from a collaboration perspective. That stays true. I think it's just, how will the metrics change? So how much more collaboration space versus focus space do we have? The overall, footprint will probably be slightly reduced, but again, we still have certain cultures, countries where this is probably not possible just because of the environment outside of the office. And also there's certain work groups, job categories within J&J, we still have to provide a workspace all the time. So I think we have to be very specific what we analyze. But just to summarize, my answer, yes, we have to reimagine it, but I don't think as dramatic as may some people think.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, for the people listening, if you'd like to ask a question to the panelists, now is your chance to do so. So pop it onto chat and I can ask the question for you. But Peter, let's move on. I mean, you talked to me about 3 phases, respond, return, and then reimagine. We've talked a little bit about the response and the return. Let's just look at reimagining. I mean, what is yours and Condeco's perspective on this? And I think also, how will you use data to help inform a reimagined way of working?
I think data from this return phase is quite critical, right? Occupancy data is obviously one dimension, but I think there's a lot of other data that is really important. So, for example, we're really interested in building feedback into all our scheduling workflows, right? So think of Uber, right? How was your trip? I think gathering that feedback about whether the workspace that was occupied actually met the needs and whether there were any issues, both qualitative and quantitative, I think will be hugely useful. I think the other thing we really need to start understanding is why people work from home and why do they come to the office? Because I think there's maybe things that are, well, first sight, a little bit overlooked. Our assumption is that people come to the office to work together, to meet, to be social, to collaborate, and so on. I think there's potentially an overlooked segment of workers who come to the office because that's where they actually can be productive and they can't be productive at home. Particularly in cities like London, where space is at a premium, people live in flat shares and so on. So I think really understanding the landscape, and this will be different for every organization, and it will be different for roles, and then understand different work profiles. So really carve up the population into those different profiles of maybe a preference to work remotely, to a preference to come to the office, and what people actually do when they come to the office. Which kind of spaces do they occupy? To really understand, you know, the work profiles of employees, and then beyond that, I think that's really the foundation in this return phase. To us, I think the things we hear from all our customers is, what does the frictionless experience of the future look like? So when I come to the office, how can that experience be as simple and responsive and personalized as possible? So from a scheduling perspective, you know, how can we automate those processes? So maybe when I say I want to come to the office, we automatically give you a desk at your preferred location near your team. We prompt you when your team is in the office, for example, say, hey, Friday is a great time to come to the office because your co-workers are there and you're having already a meeting with so-and-so, right? All this is possible now with the data we can get out of people's calendars and the cloud platforms, and you bring that together with a moderate dose of artificial intelligence to create this really seamless experience. I think to us, yeah.
No, I like that. I mean, I think nudging and using AI and machine learning is going to be the secret, isn't it? So it's not just kind of random and self-service, but you're being suggested, and that optimizes the future. Because of course it is now based on tribes and clusters, so we need to kind of create that on a balanced way through a week, as opposed to a random number of people coming in each day. I mean, Sabine, what's your view on data for our American friends? I mean, what do you generate? What is useful, and what insights can you provide?
Well, we do compute the utilization over time, so you have insight into what patterns occur, which is now, of course, very different than to before. Typically, pre-COVID, we saw a lot of home office Friday dips in data. So that was very common across customers. And now pretty much you see the faces and waves around the world of people going back into the offices. And in some countries already, again, actually, unfortunately, going back to the home office work. And if you look at it pre-COVID, we always saw that utilization, it was never at 100%. I mean, that's also not something you really want to strive for. You want to have a buffer area so that you're not stressed to come to the office. What now we anticipate it's going to drop even lower. So that with our solution, you would see where you have those 3 workspaces. And also now it helps with determining, is it safe to come to the office? Can I keep my distancing? Or should I stay home? Or do I feel better if I stay home? So it's a bit of both. We also provide this view to, or can provide this view to employees to make that decision for themselves, but it's mostly for monitoring as well, for the crisis management of companies now to be compliant and safe.
I mean, Mathias, let's go back to you. Johnson & Johnson, are you, what's your getting the data from these platforms to inform your efficiencies, your utilization, or is it about the employee's experience and letting them have some kind of degree of control over their space? At the moment, I guess it's about when do I come in and where do I sit? But can you see in the future becoming even smarter, finding colleagues, controlling the AV, the BMS, the kind of environment? Where will you take the experience going forwards?
It's a good question. I think utilization is a hard data and mostly looked at by real estate CFOs, and it gives you an idea how many people are in the building and which settings are used most. But what was the experience of the employee with that setting or with that environment at the given time is very important. We're using just one example. We're using the Leesman survey for, I think, the 3rd consecutive year now. That gives us some insights on what the employee think about the space and what their experience is. I think going into the future and just seeing the questions on the right side, I think understanding now what within an activity-based neighborhood, what is actually the activities our employees need going forward. And that could be a temporary situation for the next 6 to 9 months, and then maybe after 9 or 12 months there will be a more permanent solution in place. We as a company, we as a real estate team, facilities team, we need to be able to react on that at the moment, on time. So that could be find your colleague as a feature. Is that important? Is that something our people need? Or do they just use a standard chat function they already have just to understand who is in the office and who is not? Smart cleaning, should we provide additional services so that you actually know the desk was cleaned 5 minutes before I come? We have the data now. We could restrict people to use 1 desk per day at the moment. And every time you leave, at the end of the day, it's 100% clean. So I think we have to react on time right now to increase the experience of our employees and start to understand what is that experience longer term. I wouldn't stand here and decide what is in 9 months, what is in 12 months. I don't want to change the whole portfolio right now. I think we have excellent workspaces, that provide what you need right now. We're not exceeding any utilization at the moment globally. Maybe China, Shanghai is already back over 80%, but that's fine. That's what they want. That's what they tell us. But everywhere else in the world, we're not hitting that utilization for a long time. And so that gives us time to understand what we need to change. And we're really a big thing. What changed also to answer the question on the right side, what is the biggest learning from the COVID is we accelerated our workplace experience by 3 to 5 years, just because our employees, work from home. So they reimagine their workplace themselves. We tried to sell a workplace program for many, many years. And yes, it was successful, but now it's now our employees are asking for the future. The businesses are asking for the future. So we're together collaborating on that future. That's the biggest hit I see and the biggest opportunity for us as a CRE or facilities function.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, really. I mean, the fact that people are asking for this, both employees and heads of lines of business, is astonishing, isn't it? It's a real inflection point for the industry. We've got a minute left. I mean, if I could just ask the three of you to kind of just make one very succinct, brief prediction. If we roll forwards post-COVID, and hopefully Johnson & Johnson will find us a vaccine to get us to that goal. How has this changed the world of work? Sabine, let's start with you. If you could make one prediction as to how this will change, what would that be?
Yeah, as much as it is a challenge right now, it's a huge chance to jump on that wagon, like Mathias just said, for the acceleration of flexible working. Because now we see it does work, most likely not for all areas, but for a lot of them in worst case. So it's maybe actually the time to be a bit bold in looking at utilization of the portfolio where there are potentials and making the leap.
Thank you. Peter, your prediction.
Well, I think the thing we're seeing that the digital aspects of the workplace and the physical aspects of the workplace are now one. They have to work together. And because we're not in a situation anymore where everybody is on site at the same time. So teams are increasingly dispersed. And I think that's actually going to get stronger as a trend because companies don't necessarily have to hire at the expensive location where they, let's say, they have their HQ, but they can also hire further afield. So with more dispersed teams, I think the digital experience is absolutely going to be king and has to complement the physical experience of the workspace.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. I mean, if we are heading to this kind of hybrid existence, Mathias, what is your vision? How does this change the way that Johnson & Johnson will think about workplace?
I mean, one new big initiative we started, and where I see the future of also my role and other roles in RE and facilities management, is really adding the workforce strategy to the workplace experience. Because the workplace is not physical, at the site anymore. It's at home, it's everywhere, and understand how the workforce strategy is laid out for a certain segment within the company, for a certain area, culture, country. Understanding that will redesign the future of the workplace, the physical workplace, as well as the place at home. So we are now extending our capabilities, including services, outside of the site, and that's what makes it really interesting for us.
I mean, I think you've really summarized so much this kind of view that we have to look at all three lenses: people, place, and technology, to get this right. And to my mind, it then touches on organizational design, which I think becomes really fascinating. It's a chance to rethink the organization and how it's designed and who works with whom and so on. So it's a really intriguing space. It's a fascinating time. We haven't got through all of your questions, but I hope you've enjoyed the perspective from Europe. Please join me in thanking Sabine, Mathias, both in Switzerland, and Peter in London, for a fascinating insight into the digital workplace. Thank you.